And our first story, the managing news editor of the New Crusading Guide newspaper, Kweku Baako, has rubbished claims by former Attorney General Martin Amidu that investigative journalist Anas Aremeyaw Anas may not have been entirely truthful about his recent expose on corruption in the judiciary. The former AG, himself a well-known anti-corruption crusader, is suggesting the recent judicial expose, which has led to the suspension of some judges, was commissioned by government, which he says is manipulating the evidence to its political advantage. Mr. Baako, however, says Mr. Amidu got it all wrong.
To the aspects that concern Anas and Tiger Eye, because there are other elements at peace which I have no problem with, but those dealing with Anas and Tiger Eye with particular emphasis on the judicial corruption saga, I think the former Attorney General, who is a very good friend of mine, is a long-standing comrade, actually got it all wrong. And I have indicated that to him personally.
Which aspects in particular do you say?
Substantive points. He makes the point about the project was commissioned by government. That's an obvious untruth. If he challenges, then it's incumbent on him to provide us with something of evidential value to back up his claim.
Well, and he says that he's a former interior minister, he's a former attorney general. He suggests that it was during his time that this project was commissioned.
That's unfortunate. He's a man of integrity. And I'm wondering, just because you were in office in 2009 to 2011 will constitute sufficient grounds for you to begin to speculate, and I use the word adversely, he's speculating that whatever they may have discussed whilst in office constitutes a proof of his assertion today. Can't be. It's unsustainable. He left office when? 2011. This project began 2013 and ended 2015. It has absolutely no connection with government. But you see, let's be very honest with ourselves. Any time there had been government involvement or sponsorship or commissioning with Anas and Tiger Eye on any project, Anas had not hidden that fact, both in radio and TV interviews, as well as in the audiovisual documentaries that are put out there. The acknowledgement is made relative to the fact that government had had something to do with this. Anytime he had collaboration with state agencies, and this didn't start with the Mills or Mahama administration. It began under the Kufuor administration. He had always indicated it publicly. Sometimes if you watch those documentaries, you see the acknowledgements, and the radio and TV interviews he's had, he puts it out there. There are many other projects that were independent of either government or state agencies. So what is his beef? It is incumbent, I repeat, on my good friend Martin Amidu to provide us with something of evidential value to support his case, or he might as well, in a very honest, humble way, retract and apologize.
Meanwhile, a lawyer for some of the judges implicated in the judicial corruption scandal, John Ndebugri, is pointing to Martin Amidu's claims about Anas Aremeyaw Anas investigations as a possible vindication of his client.
John Ndebugri says Mr. Amidu's assertion that some of the judges implicated in the corruption scandal are yet to be named is a lifeline for his clients.
The crocodile comes from the bottom of the river, or something comes from the bottom of the river, somebody comes from the bottom of the river and says the crocodile is sick or is dead, you ought to believe. He says he's speaking on authority and has cited the positions he had held, and based upon which he is aware that efforts were being made to provide evidence of judicial malfeasance, which he claims that the judiciary had been denying all along. So it is, if it were in a court of law where oaths were taken, then it would be Martin Amidu's oath against the oath of Tiger IPI and its collaborators.
But here is a case, Anas himself, I mean, who is the head of this team, is also suggesting that nothing of such has taken place, and indeed, he and his team even conceived this idea in just 2013, and he's now challenging Martin Amidu to come out with any evidence that suggests that this piece was indeed commissioned by government of Ghana.
Yes, so I am a third party, just as you are. So that's why I say that it is Martin Amidu's word against the word of the representatives of Tiger IPI.
But you are on record to have said that you think that the claims being made by Martin Amidu will lead us to some sort of truth, will bring some truth to this whole piece, I mean, this investigative piece that's been contested now.
Yes, you know, and I explained that. The part that excites me, as far as the cases that we are handling are concerned, is where he says that some other judges and judicial office holders were also investigated, and yet the results relating to them has been suppressed. That gives us a lifeline, doesn't it? But what is the reason why you investigated 20 judges and you decided to damn 18 of them and you leave 2? You must explain.
In Anas's response, he says that indeed he encountered some challenges with some of the footage, which about 20 of the judges, but he also goes to mention the fact that he submitted the names of these 20 judges to the Chief Justice for them to be investigated. So it's not as if, I mean, also the claims, I mean, he says that the claims that are being made by Martin Amidu are not true. Because
I have no problem, you know, confessing to my ignorance of journalistic language. I don't understand what he means by footage.
The word he uses in his piece is video. I mean, alternatively, you can choose to use footage, but video also means footage.
Yes, but what difficulties did he have? Are we not entitled to know? Are we not entitled to know? Why is it that he's keeping those 20, you know, secret?
Well, we'll see how this unfolds throughout the rest of the day. We'll bring you a lot more updates on this very platform. But let's turn our attention to a subject of local government authorities.
Now, the minority in Parliament says a directive by the local government minister, Collins Dauda, asking assemblies across the country to elect one person among them to preside over business is illegal and unconstitutional.
Addressing the media in Accra, the minority leader warned the minister's directive could have consequences for the decentralization policy and thus must not be allowed to stand.
It has come to our notice that the Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, by a circular, proposed to amend Order 10.7 of the Model Standing Orders of the District, Municipal and Metropolitan Assemblies to enable an assembly to elect one of its members to preside over the assembly if the members are unable to elect a presiding member. We find this attempt to be illegal and unconstitutional. The 1992 Constitution provides in Article 244 that 1, the District Assembly shall have a presiding member who shall be elected by the Assembly from among its members. 2, the presiding member shall be elected by at least 2/3 majority of all the members of the Assembly. And 3, the presiding member shall A, preside over the meeting of the Assembly, and B, perform such other functions as may be prescribed by law. Members of the press, Section 17 of the Local Government Act 1993, Act 462, restates the above constitutional provision, and particularly in subsection 5 says, and I quote, the presiding member shall convene and preside over all meetings of the Assembly and perform such other functions as may be prescribed by law, unquote. The combined effect of these provisions is that no assembly meeting can be convened and conducted in the absence of a substantive presiding member. The only exception is where the secretary to the assembly, the district coordinating director, is empowered by Order 1 of the standing orders of the district assemblies to convene the inaugural meeting at which the presiding member is to be elected.
Okay, let me just run this by you. Ghana always prides itself as the best place for doing business in West Africa. Haven't you heard that before?
Yeah, so many times. But this is underpinned by the political stability the country has enjoyed, even though in terms of market size, it cannot compete with, say, Nigeria. However, it looks like Ivory Coast may spoil the party for our dear country. Here's George Riafe.
For some firms that Joy Business has engaged, their action to relocate part of their business to Ivory Coast has been influenced by the rising cost of doing business in Ghana, which has been compounded by the current energy crisis, rising interest rates, and even difficulties in getting access to credit. There are reports that fresh fruit exporter Blue Skies has also indicated that it could soon move to Ivory Coast if the current situation does not improve anytime soon. Joy Business is learning that majority of these businesses that are working to move to Ivory Coast are in the commodity trading business. But what is doing the trick for Ivory Coast, especially for a country that has just come out of war? Well, it looks like the strong economic growth, a fairly stable currency, which is interestingly supported by the French government, and what some are calling a business-friendly tax system. But for some, this development is very interesting, because the recent World Bank Doing Business report, overall, Ghana is far ahead in terms of a country that is good to do business. The report, for instance, ranks Ghana 114 compared to Ivory Coast 142 out of 189 countries ranked. However, when it comes to starting a business, Cote d'Ivoire is far ahead with a rank of 46 compared to Ghana's rank of 102. But a source close to government has told Joy Business that they expect the situation to improve for local businesses from next year, based on the fact that the current energy crisis should be over from next month.
Meanwhile, the country's chief investment promoter, Mawena Trevor, says although they acknowledge development in Ivory Coast, her outfit is focused on improving Ghana's situation.
To do is to be very explicit about the kinds of opportunities that are available. There are very specific projects, not just the public-private partnerships, but there are projects that have been identified that are private sector to private sector. Those are the specifics that we present to the international business community. We also give them information about the legal and regulatory environment. They are well aware of our tax code and the benefits of accessing some supports to start your business utilizing the existing tax code. They are aware of our legislation in relation to strategic investors. So we have tried to carve out a difference, even in the challenging times, in the experience the investor has. And so as a center, what we've tried to do is to change the experience that the investor is having, so that even if they are looking at the current economics, they are also aware of the medium to long term. And for many of the investments that we're looking at now, a lot of them are taking a view of how to roll out over the next 12, 24, 48 months. And in that time frame, looking at some of the systems and the structures that are being put in place to bring back the fiscal controls that we need to reestablish the confidence that is needed by the business community. A lot of investors feel quite confident that we do have the capacity to attain the level of stability that will give them comfort.
Okay, so we'll see how that goes as far as Ghana's placement in some of the best countries in Africa or on the subcontinent to do business. But this is a lot more sad or tragic, because a 5-year-old boy who lives in Amasama, just close to Accra, has possibly been blinded for life. This is after his mother, gorged or stabbed his eyes out in a fit of rage, claiming the boy was not her son. Joy FM Super Morning Show host Kweku Baako has been following the story and interacted with this very small boy.
We heard heard the story through some colleagues of ours who were quite alarmed at such a horrifying occurrence. Apparently, this all happened while the boy's father was out of town. He's a carpenter, so he travels for work occasionally. And while he was out of town, the boy's mother, who is known to be a particularly active prayer person, during one of her prayer sessions suddenly stopped, turned and attacked her son, jumped on him, pushed him onto the ground, and took a piece of a broken plastic plate and started stabbing him repeatedly in the face with it. Of course, the boy tried to protect himself, and so she broke both of his arms in order to subdue him so she could continue stabbing him. And the boy kept crying, "Mommy, why are you doing this to me?" And her answer was, "You're not my child. You're not my child."
So where's this boy's mother now? What's her situation?
Well, when the father came back and realized what had happened, he first took her to Pantang, because I suppose he suspected some sort of medical condition, a mental condition. So they took her, examined her, did some tests, and then asked him whether he wanted her committed. Now, at the time, he was concerned because he would have to keep looking after his son in hospital and also make time to look after the mother, and he was worried he wouldn't be able to do both effectively. So he asked if the woman's family would send someone to stay with her at the hospital at Pantang. They said no, they would rather come and take her away from the hospital. So that is what happened. They came and took her to the Brong-Ahafo region, where she is currently being treated at a prayer camp.
And this is a woman who has never shown signs of any sort of mental disorder. As you say, she was a prayer warrior, right?
Well, the young boy's parents had been married for 9 years, and the father reports that such a thing has never happened. He is convinced that this is all spiritual. He feels that at some point while she was praying, she may have been overtaken by some spirit which caused her to act in this manner.
How has the family relationship been affected?
Well, when I went out to meet them, you could tell that there is a lot of strain on the poor man. The boy appears to be doing better. He seems more lively. He understands what has happened to him, but he still is able to be cheerful and responsive. But when you talk to him about what his mother did, he becomes very subdued, and you can tell that he has a bit of a phobia now for his own mother.
The reporter's speech of Kojo Yankson. And so, please, we'll bring you a lot more interaction on this very subject. Now, how do you feel about some of the stories we've put together for you this very morning? Make sure, as always, you interact on our WhatsApp line. It's a number I should remember, 0560 800,000.
Yeah, I'll buy breakfast. Okay, so Ahumka Inspiration definitely representing every morning from Enoch Ahumka Bain. He says, "Good morning, family. In doubtful matters, boldness is everything." Okay,
that's lovely.
Yeah, he's always, telling us about other what people are saying to inspire us, and we appreciate it very much. Let's get on to, all right, this one says, "Good morning. You both are looking splendid this morning.
Thank you.
Keep on rocking your show." Is from Shatta. But this is a shutter with an R and one T.
Okay. It's not for the other shutter.
Okay, this is excellence is doing common things in uncommon ways. So let's try to do common things in uncommon ways to succeed, by Angela Golokwati.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the message. This is from Bashiru Bapagu from Tumu. And he writes, "This judicial scandal case should be handled carefully, so there is fairness to all parties. He should also make public the other 2 judges so that this matter come to rest." That's your take on the Martin Amidu twist to this whole conversation. This one says, "Good morning to all Joy News workers, not forgetting you people on the AM show. All the best in life." Thank you. Kindly include your name when you send the message. And this one, Roland, is on the story, the last story that you did. And you did the story because...
It says, this mother needs to be jailed, forever in prison. And that's from Nanaifa, who is giving her this very message from their front place, Tepa. Tepa is where he is sending this very message. And so, that'll be it. It's a good morning, please. I don't know your name. Please let us, let let the president do something about this judicial corruption. Please tell MPP they should stop fighting. Joy News, you are number 1, and it's from Dixon Akachi. Okay, 4 issues in one text
Dixon
message.
has a take on all the issues.
Yeah.
That's nice.
All right.
Yeah.
So please, as always, make sure also you get interactive on other social network pages. Joy News on TV is our official page on Facebook, which has a link on our Twitter handle at Joy News on TV. Next, we have to look at what the stories are on the front and back pages of the newspapers.
Yeah, it's captured by Major Online. Stay with us. We'll come back and do that.
We'll be right back.